Eliza Bleu's been getting into some problems here. Talk about the Streisand effect. We had Eliza on about a year and a half ago, and I remember asking the question because the issue, the crux issue of the, you know, her experience as described then, I was asking, like, what are we understanding by the concept of human trafficking? Because a lot of people might disagree with this defining what we typically think of human trafficking, like Liam Neeson Taken, not Girls Gone Wild type thing where you might regret exploitive behavior, but you'd call it something, but you wouldn't call it human trafficking in the sense that we understand it. And now it seems like there's an overt attempt to shift the Overton window as to what human trafficking means to potentially mean exploitation of behavior that I now regret. Setting all that aside, and people can go back and watch that interview and try to piece the timeline together here, because the way Eliza responded or her allies to a relatively innocuous set of circumstances coming from the quartering Brittany Venti, who were pulling screen grabs from a video from 6 years ago on World Star Hip Hop saying, is this part of the trafficking history of which you speak? And it was a video that looked to be consensually produced, consensually content provided at least. There were some other circumstances about Eliza acknowledging that video, and you know, all the videos are out there, and now the sleuths have been turned on to it. So allegedly they had these accounts banned. Big accounts who were under ordinary circumstances would have been allies of Eliza and the movement, the cause in general, banned the quartering, banned Brittany Venti. They're back on now, and others whose names I don't know. The explanation,
I know the quartering is back on. Is Brittany Venti back yet?
I don't know if I don't know if I DM'd her.
Yeah, I mean, the quartering has a few more allies. You know, we've been lobbying aggressively. Elon Musk told you he would look into it.
He told me he'd look into the banning of the Modi documentary, but then in response, I took the opportunity to bring to his attention Free Jeremy, Free the Quartering, because setting aside everything with Eliza, and the sleuths out there are not going to relent. Set aside all of that. What they did to Jeremy is unjust, as we discussed a week. It's unjustifiable, in fact, in law. So just, you know, they can undo one mistake, but it looks like the new boss might be similar to the old boss, unless, you know, Elon just didn't know and now he knows, and we'll see.
Sorry, well, Elon has been busy. He's been in trial in a multi-billion-dollar case, taking the stand on the case we discussed last week. I think the trial's still ongoing. I think his testimony may have finally ended, but obviously he's been a little distracted. I think that was one of his points in response to you was, I got a couple of businesses, pardon me a little bit for not daily micromanaging everything. I don't think he wanted to say that he's been distracted by that trial. He didn't want to admit that publicly, but that's billions of dollars and a lot of legal risk at stake for him. So I understand him, and I don't put this on him. I don't think he's personally involved in this. Some people thought he was. I don't think so. And he brought Dave Rubin out to do a deep dive within, which was, Musk is clearly committed to transparency. I don't think he'll ever be a full free speech guy. He made that clear very early on when he said he would not reinstate Alex Jones. And I've always said that about him, but he's a dramatic improvement over the past. And I don't think he's responsible for what's happening with Eliza Bleu. I think other people at Twitter are responsible. And Eliza Bleu's associates, and maybe she herself is responsible. The question is, well, the reason why we put her on is because she was doing very good work highlighting how Twitter was promoting child pornography on a constant, continuous basis and victims of real trafficking, old school trafficking. So that I didn't care what her past was. I didn't care about any of that. Only cared that wanted to use the interview with her to get the world to know this is a problem. Now, once she started going on this pitch, my concern started to grow, particularly because I was worried that not only is it about misapplication and leveraging of power that could undermine the important fight against real human trafficking by discrediting herself and the movement in the process, but also there's another side to what's been happening out there of avaricious lawyers who want to monetize these cases for their personal enrichment and thereby support false accusations and allegations that they should know are false. Here's a little truth out there. Some of the key lawyers connected to the Epstein case that did great work exposing Epstein, I think deliberately falsely blamed certain people in order to line their own pockets. Ultimately, Virginia Giuffre came out and admitted the allegations against Dershowitz were utterly and totally false. I think I said from day one that they were. Everything about him.
And the damage is done to Dershowitz. I mean, I'll go back to the chat now, and I'm going to.
I get harassed all the time. How can you back Dershowitz? How can you like Dershowitz? He's a pedophile. False, false, false. It was always false. It was. And if you had an IQ over 50, you could figure that out.
And again, I'll get accused for defending Dershowitz because we're both Jewish, even though it's nuts. But the underwear on business.
I'm also Jewish.
Robert, you're a Zionist, okay? Like you get it worse. No one's ever accused me of being a Zionist. They accused me of being Jewish. But no, even with Dershowitz and the underwear, he kept his underwear on. That was at a massage in Florida. That wasn't on Epstein's Island. But once you throw out these accusations, they leave lingering effects in everybody's mind. But who was it? Like the people who were involved with Epstein were defending the Weinsteins. I mean,
well, let me give you an alternative narrative. The people that are involved with aspects of this who want to liberalize human trafficking standards to take what happened to Me Too. So you look at what happened to Me Too under the Obama administration. They weaponized it in college campuses to go after people, to promote, to empower radical feminists, often supporting allegations that did not have any factual basis, strip people of their due process of law. Several liberals, lefties, have written on this about how atrocious and horrific it was. And so the question is, do you have the same thing happening in the human trafficking space, which serves a bifurcated purpose, allows them to politically weaponize certain forms of feminist power grab to use the allegation of sexual misconduct to take out their political opponents? Much has happened against Julian Assange. Much has happened against Steve Wynn. Difference is Steve Wynn was probably guilty, but that's another story. But still, do you think Steve Wynn was the only casino oligarch to ever engage in sexual misconduct? I mean, come on. If you want sexual misconduct, throw a rock at a Democratic caucus, you'll hit somebody who's committed sexual misconduct. I guarantee you. It's what I told my daughter. If any guy ever tells you he's a feminist, run right away. They're all going to be stalkers and just problematic people. But so they weaponize human trafficking, liberalize its standards in order to go after people like the Andrew Tates of the world, like the Julian Assange of the world, for purpose. Remember, in Julian Assange's case, they were saying misusing a condom constituted no difference between that and actual sexual assault.
Well, I think under Swedish law, that is a form of assault, like tampering with a condom. Never been
criminally prosecuted, to my knowledge, as such, and was deeply. And it's not a coincidence they were targeting Assange with it. And so, is it the weaponizing of it to achieve a politically questionable purpose? Is it also being weaponized by people looking just to line their pockets, who are willing to make false allegations or support false allegations to defame and destroy people to enrich themselves? And at the same time, by doing so, they actually reduce the value. It's like everybody's a racist. I criticize conservatives of this. If everybody's a Marxist, nobody is. If everybody's a communist, nobody is. If everybody's a racist, to my friends on the left, nobody is. Well, if everybody's a human trafficker, then nobody is. What do? You dilute and diminish the meaning and horror of human trafficking by associating with this. The question is Eliza Bleu part of that? She shows up on a project involving a lawyer connected to the Epstein case, connected to Virginia Giuffre, connected to false allegations against Dershowitz. She supposedly had a safe house that nobody can ever find or locate, apparently, associated with fundraisers that raised major questions, apparently bragged about being a video vixen on tape, and now is claiming that any producing a proof of that is somehow evidence of human trafficking and the person has to be banned. Her behavior has, as you pointed out, the Streisand effect, but raises bigger questions to me beyond the wrongful banning of the quartering, which quartering's finally reinstated, thankfully. It raises questions as to exactly what she's up to and what she's about, because I have a lot more questions now because of her censor campaign she's been on, or her allies have been on.
Robert, I don't disagree with anything you just said. And it was the one example that struck out at me is, when she now ostensibly refers to that world star hip hop as trafficking or some form of exploitive content, where now I look back at the other case that she was talking about on Twitter, which I know is a bona fide, like, much more egregious case, and it's going to dilute that the egregiousness of that case, because people are going to say, oh, it's coming from her. It's just another person complaining that someone took photos of them. And it was much worse than that. So,
oh, much horrifically worse.
Yeah, no, it was.
So that's. I think she's doing damage now to the cause against human trafficking. So that's why I'm raising the issues in this public forum.